Everyone. I'm Molly Snyder. I'm from onmilwaukee.com and just from Milwaukee in general. I've lived here my whole life and I love to walk around Milwaukee. So this book was a really good fit for me. And I got to do it with my favorite human in the world. So that's this guy. So you can.
I'm Royal Brevaxxling. I'm a local photographer and photojournalist. This is Stevie. Should probably be back.
Yeah. We have two Chihuahuas and they do not like us to do anything without them. So
No.
you've been warned. Sorry.
Huh?
You're Royal
I'm Royal.
and you're professor and
Oh,
photojournalist.
yeah. I'm good.
And he's good. See, I'll just yap all about myself all day. He is the modest one. He keeps me modest. So Royal and I have worked together in many capacities before. We always wanted to work together full time.
Yeah.
And that hasn't quite happened. We've had like business ideas and stuff that never really got off the ground, but we have worked together in a variety of ways. He takes most of the photos for my articles on Milwaukee. So that means he takes lots of pictures of food and concerts and drinks and interesting Milwaukeeans and then they accompany my articles. And we've also done a number of more artistic projects together where we have created different exhibits and such, almost always based on Milwaukee, but at various galleries in the city. But this is the first time we wrote a book together.
Yeah.
And that's one of our attractions. I'm a writer, he's a writing professor. We're both creatives, but Royal is more of, he's also an excellent editor. And editing is something I had to get better at in over 20 years. I'm happy to say I have gotten better at it, much better at it, but it's not just my natural self. My natural self is like just much more of a creative and a little bit more of an abstract person. So I think we work really well together because, you know, as cliche as it sounds, he really is like my eye dotter and my T crosser, like literally and figuratively. So it was a really great experience for us. And so I'm just gonna have here's the book.
There's a picture of the book in the.
Yeah, we'll be getting to that. But so the thing is about the book is that it was really interesting as it was started out. We were contacted by Keene Publishing, Wilderness Press, in like the summer of 2018. Yes.
Yeah.
And they asked us if we wanted to write this book because they knew that the DNC was coming to Milwaukee. And it was going to be this hyped up book that was going to be sold for various reasons, but it was also going to be targeted to a lot of people who are coming to Milwaukee, not only to go to the DNC, but also to vacation before, during, or after the DNC. And so when the DNC was canceled, we were so disappointed at first because we thought like, oh, this was the way that it was all being marketed and pitched, and now this wasn't going to happen. But what we quickly realized is that in a lot of ways, the book became more relevant because, unfortunately, I guess I'll say, but the book became more relevant because of the pandemic and because people, ourselves included, so much wanted to do things that were safe, that were outdoors, that were healthier. Because it's so easy to fall back on our unhealthy vices, which we do those as well. But this is just a way to bring in more like health and exercise and information and fun into our lives. And the book is something that you can use with yourself. You can use it with a partner. You can use it with a small group. It's really compact and it's really easy to follow. So it has really specific maps inside of it, which you'll see.
Yeah, we'll go through the book. What's interesting about the book is that it's part of a larger series of walking books. So there's some, the Walking Twin Cities book is in its third edition, and we took a look at that, as well as Walking Philadelphia. I felt that Milwaukee should have had one a lot sooner, of course, as Milwaukeeans would. But interestingly, the Walking Chicago one just came out about the same time. So they're making their way around to all the best, better places in the country.
Right. So in the book, there's 31 walks, and we could have had more, could have had definitely done more, and we may include some more walks in the next edition of the book.
We had planned 35, but we settled on these 31. We have a number of others that were started but not completed.
Exactly.
In different parts of town.
Exactly. So one of the things that was really important to us as lovers of Milwaukee and also critics of Milwaukee is that we wanted to have walks on all sides of town. Downtown, is so much fun. There's so much to see. We love doing our downtown walks. We love doing our Brady Street walks. We loved doing our 2nd Street and Walker's Point walks. But it was also really cool to go into neighborhoods that either we were less familiar with or not familiar with at all and get to know them and be able to map out walks and spend time in these neighborhoods and just find out so much more about all of Milwaukee.
We laid out the book starting at downtown, thinking of potential audiences and sort of radiated out as Milwaukee does with its streets that head out of downtown at an angle. And Juneautown is our first walk. And we thought we would show this one. I think others are our favorite, but this is sort of the quintessential Milwaukee. Started downtown, on the east side of downtown anyway. And then we didn't do all of Westtown. We focused on the new brewery neighborhood just for space, not for, any other reason. But so we thought we'd show just this first chapter and talk through it. This is the first page of each walk, has a photo that we took, and then it offers the boundaries, the total distance, and we rated each walk easy, moderate, or difficult. This one is easy for various reasons. One, whether it's hilly or not, and its overall length. We tried to account for different kinds of people who'd be interested in the urban hiking experience, as they call it. And then each walk offers places to start or where to park and public transit options near our starting point, rather. And then on each one, a walk introduction follows, and then you move into the description of the walk itself. And we have a starting point with each walk, and then most of them come back to the same point. There are some that are a little distant. Some walking books in the series, such as in New York, they might not go back to the same point, and then they'll get on a different transit option. But in Milwaukee, it was really enjoyable to create these more or less circular paths to different parts of the city. And then you end up back at your car. So we assume most people would drive. But we do have the transit options there too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the next 2 pages of the Juneautown walk. So moves into the walk description. The points of interest are in those red dots. They're numbered. After the intro, then it's starting at the exit from the parking structure beneath O'Donnell Park, across Lincoln Memorial Drive, and then head over to the art museum, and it goes from there. And then we'll layer in information that we chose based on our research and histories of Milwaukee, but also our personal interests. So if there was ever, Juneautown was actually very difficult because, as you might imagine, there's a lot one could pack into a walk on the east side of downtown, but we were limited by word count, and the editors did not want a lot of points of interest. And I think we kind of have too many for one. Well, I don't think they were very happy with this one. There's more than their usual. And so we were very selective, and we're the authors of the book, so we went with things that interest us.
And that gets tricky throughout writing the book too, because the points of interest, deciding what you're going to talk about and not talk about, like on Brady Street or downtown, was difficult, especially because we've been entertainment writers and photojournalists for so long that we have a personal relationship with so many of the business owners that all over the city. And you just thought, I don't want to leave anybody out. So that was hard. That was hard. Yeah.
And we give a little bit of history, but mostly we focus on the culture and the people of Milwaukee. It was important for us to feature what's here now. The Walking Philadelphia book, by contrast, gives deep histories on those walks to a lot of those historic buildings. We have just as many historic buildings. Well, okay, maybe not just as many as Philadelphia, but we have our own deep history. So we have a little history in there, but it's not a history tour by any means. And I think our first Goodreads review gave us 3 stars and said, not what I was expecting, not a lot of history. I'm like, well, we never really promised a lot of history.
Just living the 3-star life over here.
It's 31 tours of Brew City's neighborhoods, landmarks, and entertainment districts. So,
and feel free to go give us a review and give us maybe 4 stars. I don't know, 5, dare I ask? Whatever you think.
But the points of interest we select were, we tried to vary, but they're not driven by history, by giving the proper history of Milwaukee by any means.
And I think that gives a lot of flavor to the book too, though, because again, there is history in it, but also because we are people that spend so much time for our jobs and for our interests and personal life, actually out in the city doing things almost every day of the year. I feel like we got to like plant in a lot of little insider pieces of information and suggestions. And that was really fun to be able to add to it. That we just simply know just from simply knowing and loving and spending so much time being social and explorative and adventuresome in Milwaukee.
So we focus on the founders of the city who moved here and displaced the people who were already here for the most part. Although Solomon Juneau, to his credit, worked a great deal with the indigenous folks who are here. But again, it's not really about that. So we do have the founders in here and their parts of town, but we try to focus on the people who are here now and more recently, and immigrant history, those sorts of things in the different neighborhood was important for us to feature rather than the big 3, Kilbourne, Juneau, and Walker. They're in here, but then we fast forward in history, and there's a lot of more recent 20th century history as we move through the neighborhoods. And we do focus a lot on things that were here, are still here. They're hanging on for the most part during all the shutdowns and the pandemic, but we'll see. There's still worthwhile walks, even if some of the places might unfortunately not survive.
Yeah.
But all the places within the first walk, of course, are there, and we'll be there, hopefully. So that's a long one. We tried to cover most of the east side of downtown. At the end of each walk, they all look the same. We're just going to share this one, and they're like variations on this theme. So they have the points of interest listed, and then there's a map. So you can locate yourself on the map from the starting point to the end point, and then look around for yourself.
And if this wasn't clear, the way that the book is written is literally like
walk forward, take a left, go down.
Right.
Go down Wisconsin Avenue.
Yeah.
Note these things. Take a right down Water Street. It's like that.
And that's where the size of the book, I think, is really important. It's really easy to hold and compact because it's and there's just a lot of like white space. It's laid out really well. We had nothing to do with that, but I'm really happy with it because you can glance down and then glance up. And the glancing down, we wanted to be less than the glancing up because this book is to help you get outside, take walks, learn something along the way, have fun. And so it's more of something that a guide that you can bring with you that can make a great walk rather than a book that you're going to necessarily sit down and read. Although we've had people do that, which we've really appreciated. So if anyone's done that, thank you as well. But anyway, it's really just to help you get the most of walking around and enjoying the city and going to new places and exploring new places.
Or just taking a new route through your favorite parts of the city.
Yeah, that too.
The editorial directives from the publishing house are really interesting. They really, each of the books in this series, they hire local authors and from each of the cities that they feature in the urban hiking series. And one of the few directives is try to make it as interesting for people who already live there as for visitors. Mm-hmm. And so that was a fun thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was.
Now we have some,
I guess, our favorite walks. Can we say that?
Some of them, yeah. Bronzeville is a favorite. Bronzeville is an area north of Fiserv Forum now that it wasn't historically called Bronzeville, but it is now. And so we went with the new designation. This includes parts of surrounding neighborhoods. This is the 5th walk. I think we just have a series of photos from some of our favorite walks.
And this, yep, Brady Street.
We chose these these parts is radiating out of downtown for the most part.
I really like the Brady Street walk because it is a combination of, there's some lake introduction as well as so it's very, very urban. So my favorite parts are of living in Milwaukee is when I can combine nature with city, particularly the lake. So I felt happy that we could incorporate. We do have a lake walk.
That's just along the lake.
Just along the lake.
Up and down the bluff. That one is difficult if it's challenging to go up and down the lake bluff. So as many folks might observe, people running up and down those stairs, I've never done it. It's great exercise. They're running up and down those stairs to the lake.
Looks like it. Yeah.
Looks like a blast.
Have a sip of beer on that.
Might be more enjoyable if you take it slower.
Yes. So a number of our walks are, they're city, they're east side, they're Brady Street, but they also introduce the lake or have a little bit of the lake in them because, in our opinion, that's probably the best part, one of the best parts, top 5, top 3 maybe, of living in Milwaukee.
We are a city on the Great Lake. The Brady Street walk begins at Swing Park, which is underneath the Holton Street Viaduct. So there's some free parking there and nearby transit options, just to give you a sense of the different kinds of places we try to start people out.
Mm-hmm.
Swing Park is really cool. Historic Concordia focuses on those historic buildings. We give a little bit of some of the history behind those, but not too much. Again, it's about what's there now. So we do talk about the bed and breakfasts, such as the Mandalay pictured here.
If you like Victorian mansions, this is the walk for you. Seriously, it is just, it's like a fairy tale.
But we do start on Wisconsin and we go into surrounding neighborhoods. And then we'll head over to South 27th Street on this walk and point out some of our favorite spots like Daddy's Soul Food Grill and 5 O'Clock Steakhouse.
The Soho neighborhood is one that we always enjoy spending time there together as a couple and with our kids at the places that he mentioned and others. And it's just, again, it was really nice to be able to put that into our book and let people who might not know about the Soho neighborhood in Milwaukee to not only hear about it, but then to actually be able to experience it. And it also has some beautiful murals, has some just some really interesting businesses that have been around for a long time in the neighborhood. And it's a really, it's an area with a really strong community.
Soho.
Soho. Did I say Soho?
Yeah. I think I typed Soho 9 times.
Yeah.
In the
Soho.
Writing the book.
Not Soho.
South of Highland.
Yes. Soho.
There's another. This is near the start. No, that's cool. This is near the start of the Concordia walk. So we start on Wisconsin and then head west and then move into the historic homes. But we feature some of this architecture. It's just amazing along Wisconsin Avenue.
And it's fun because, you might have driven by that building and you might have even known what it was called. But in our book, we give a few sentences or a paragraph on more information, just so next time you walk by it or drive by it, you know more about what you're seeing. And that was really fun to be able to unearth some of this stuff that I'd been seeing since I was a little girl, and just to unearth more information, I should say, about it, and just be like, okay, good to know.
And then there's a number of walks circulating out from here that there were 3 that we had planned that we didn't do, and then one, we have 700 words toward, most of the walks are, what were they, 1,700 words?
Mm-hmm.
15? I don't remember. We have 700 words toward a few neighborhoods on the northwest side that didn't get into the book. One of those is Valhalla. That was one that was a neighborhood, for instance, we didn't know a lot about. We have some friends who live there.
Can you believe it? If you don't know that we have a neighborhood in Milwaukee called Valhalla.
And of course, there's the cemetery there, but the neighborhood around that cemetery is also called Valhalla, which is really interesting.
I just was blown away by the name of that neighborhood and never knowing it. Just
we were walking around, and I would just sing the Led Zeppelin song over and over.
How can you not, really? So,
But then on our way, up to Northridge Lakes. One other walk that will not get written was in the far northwest corner. I wanted to do one in each of the corners because they're really interesting, and their ways to literally stand on the edge of the city and look inward and get that perspective. But the northwest corner of the city turns out it's not very friendly for foot traffic. Not a lot of sidewalks.
There had to be sidewalks on the walk, and that's something that we should mention too, is that
there are some paths and other things, and people will need to take to the street, but like to Jackson Park, so it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
But one thing we realized writing the book is we don't really pay attention to the sidewalks a lot, and this really forced us to stay on these paths. We'll just sort of walk wherever we want, but we did take other people into account, people who might not be so comfortable with that. But so up to Northridge Lakes, there were a couple to the west that didn't work out, but we knew we wanted Northridge Lakes in the book. This is a 25th walk for the contrast that it offers, the beauty around those lakes. And then, as we mentioned in the subtitle, the so-called urban decay is actually quite startling. It's beautiful. The mall that is there and the buildings around that are now empty, the capitalist flight that's happening in that part of the city really leaves behind a completely different kind of scene to walk through.
And I grew up in Milwaukee, and Northridge was our go-to mall. And I spent so much time there as a kid with my parents, and then as a teenager before the Grand Avenue Mall downtown opened, or also during that time. But it was just it's so startling, and there's so much to be learned from looking at what the mall is now and what that whole area is now. And it's sad, but it also is, again, there's some opportunity there. And we also just wanted to bring more people to the north side of Milwaukee, and Northridge Lakes we felt was a good way to do that, because it does not feel like you're really anywhere in Milwaukee. It's really beautiful. And
in fact, it does, abut the city on the county line and the Mequon, and a large park on the Mequon side is there. Across a large grove of trees, but Brown Deer is just to the east too, and that commercial district. But you don't sense that when you're walking around the lakes.
It's quiet, even
very quiet.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And if you could just park your car and just walk around the lakes, you'll see that how many people live in the area and how many people are walking themselves
after work,
or walking dogs or jogging. And it's like this, I don't know, it's like a little gem of a community that I felt really grateful to get to peek in on.
But then we folded in the other stuff around the mall. It's just to the west of this.
We do.
So this is one of the longer walks in the book. It's still easy, but it's about 5 miles long. It's all flat.
Mm-hmm.
If you take it leisurely, it's just a nice walk.
It is.
Oh, that's us.
There we are. Again, that's a lot of us. Well, we really love Milwaukee, and we're really happy to have had the opportunity to write this book during this time in our history with the pandemic, but also just because we love Milwaukee and we love Milwaukeeans, and we just hope that it brings people some joy and a respite in these crazy times. Because it was really fun to write, and we are happy to report that it was a good project for us, and that we only got into one fight during the making of that book. So, which, I thought it could have been worse. We've gotten in more fights putting together IKEA furniture. So this was nice that it was something that it was really a passion project, I think is my point, is that it really was something we had a lot of fun doing, and we hope that you have a lot of fun experiencing yourself now.
It was a clean fight, though. It was over something very simple, which was literally to go either left or right.
It's true. I was right. I was correct, of course, but
I was left and I was correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your highlights of the book. We'll see if anyone has questions, but firstly, one of my questions is, if you had to recommend a walk for someone who is brand new to Milwaukee and someone who has lived in Milwaukee their whole life, do you have any that would stand out?
Someone who's lived here their whole life, I'd recommend the Silver City walk because you'd see familiar landmarks, but perhaps from a different perspective. That one is moderate because we ask people to go start in Silver City along Pierce, which is it's a great neighborhood, and check out some of the things that are happening along up the bluff from the old Menominee River Valley. It's where Silver City is, along 35th Street and National Avenue. And you start north of National Avenue, then walk out on the 35th Street viaduct and go down the stairs that lead down into the valley. And there's stunning views all around. And you get a good perspective on the recently renamed ballpark. We won't go there. And also great views to the east too.
And some number of great Thai restaurants that, you know, when things open up again, and some of them are
probably
to
our
go.
favorite bar is featured on that walk too.
Mamie's, yeah.
I'm gonna let them go read it.
Okay. Spoiler alert. Our favorite bar in Silver City is Mamie's. I want to just add too, if you know Milwaukee really well already and you want to explore somewhere new, I loved being in Pigsville.
Mm-hmm.
I always had heard of Pigsville, and I had been there once on assignment, but it was like, I didn't know the story why it's called Pigsville. That's in the book.
That was a lot of fun.
And just, it's a really, the community is literally like in a valley. So again, it just has a really different feel to it. And you're like, this is Milwaukee. And I just, now we have a friend that lives there and we know more insight to the community, but it was just a lot of fun to go to this place that I had heard of and really never spent any time there. And there's a really good bar and restaurant in there too.
There's one.
There's one, but it's a good one. So that's all that matters.
They probably want to keep it to themselves, so don't tell them recently.
Right.
That's good to know. Pigsville is one of the like classic Milwaukee neighborhood posters that we sell, and people come in like tourists all the time. They're like, "What is Pigsville? Like, why is there a neighborhood called that?"
Yep.
It's awesome. You're like bringing some light to these maybe lesser known little neighborhoods.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have another question from Tim, and he asked, "What's your favorite walk around Marquette?"
Well, we have a Marquette walk. And we go right through campus and then into the valley a little bit, but we go right up. No, we come back. We start on, well, I could look at it, I have the book. But we're right along Wisconsin, and then we cut over to the valley, and then we cut right across campus, and we point out some Marquette landmarks. But then along the rest of the route, we try to point out other things that aren't related to the university.
Yeah, I really liked that it really worked out. We weren't sure how we were going to incorporate the university into it, but it literally cuts right through the campus, and which is so beautiful and historic. And so that was something that we really appreciated. And I'm thinking there's so many things, but what comes to mind is that I always thought that Jesu was a part of Marquette and separate, from Marquette. And just, I really love these little details as much as these big things that I learned.
We start, hard to see. We start at Centennial Hall, which is inside our beautiful downtown central library, and the east side of the freeway, and then we walk across. And we hit some of the old Marquette bars, point out some things there.
We have a lot of friends that went to Marquette. I went to UWM, he went to UWM Milwaukee. So like Marquette, in terms of like nightlife and stuff, we were already familiar with. And then also just through our jobs, Marquette continues to be like the area so thriving when it comes to nightlife because of the college, that we have spent a lot of time over there going to checking out different bars and writing about them.
It really is fun just walking across campus. And why leave that to the students who are there now?
Yeah,
just mingle in with them as they're all filing out of the buildings, just join in.
Yeah,
on our walk.
And I haven't gone to college in a long time, and that was something too that it's so rare I walk really on a college campus anymore. You're a professor, so it's different, but it did feel really nice to walk on a college campus and through a college. Just the energy, the youth. It was great.
Stevie's back.
Keeps us young.
Right?
And another question from Leroy, he asked, are there any walks you've met the friendliest residents? You met people during the making of the book?
Yeah, for sure. I think in every walk, some places it was quiet when we did our research and our walking around. I really enjoyed talking to folks in So the neighborhoods around Concordia, for instance, Merrill Park, we met a number of people walking around, and then we'd come back and we'd do a little research on some of the old mansions, but then looking into other things to feature and to walk past, and then we'd go back and we'd interact with folks who point things out they liked about their neighborhood. That was really cool.
It was. To add to that, I'll give a shout out to the River West neighborhood too, because walking around the River West neighborhood is a very strong community, and just people are really friendly. And Center Street, and all around, it's the bulk of it's on Center Street, but it goes into the neighborhoods as well. It was just a lot of
that was a hard one, actually.
Friendly people.
Having lived in River West, we chose to focus in on Center Street. We could have had another River West walk, but
could have.
Whatever. We're gonna our big regret with the book is leaving out Rufus King, and that's the first walk. If we're fortunate enough to do another edition, we want to get that included. We were doing the research and planning things out, and just ran out of time.
Yeah, one of our kids graduated from Rufus King, and we also lived there in the neighborhood for a number of years and owned a house there, and it's a very near and dear neighborhood to ours. And so again, that's going to definitely, hopefully, be in the next edition. It's a great part of Milwaukee.
Yeah, we just have so many neighborhoods in Milwaukee. I'm sure it was really hard to narrow it down to 31.
It was, and also, like, we were, the publisher had their vision too, and we felt like they were extremely open to our vision. But again, in the end,
they took our word for what, they accounted for our expertise in ways, but still it had to. There's so many of these already of other cities that needed to fit the what the publisher had set out, which is a good urban hike, and it's a really interesting series for that.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who like to walk, and they all have their own focus, like some are more historical.
Mm-hmm.
The Walking Philadelphia, for instance, is a great book.
He loves that Walking Philadelphia book.
Going there with my Walking Philadelphia book, and I'm not coming back till I do all the walks.
Excellent.
It's good to know that the series exists, so if you are going to go on vacation somewhere, it's like, oh, I can get this book before I go.
I would wholeheartedly recommend the
looking into it
series.
If you're going to travel someplace. They have a lot of good titles.
They really track down people who know the city well, and I have been really impressed. They sent us a whole bunch when we took the assignment, and good insider stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, another question from Kelly, which is about to be relevant pretty soon. How about seasonal walk recommendations for winter?
Well, we didn't shy away from winter, and we blended the photos in the book from all seasons for that reason.
And we wrote this book from September to August. So a lot of the walks that we mapped out were during winter. So
maybe you'd shy away from the stairs on the 35th Street Viaduct in Silver City, but if
but maybe not.
Maybe not.
I don't know. It depends. And then there's things like, I would say our river walk.
Mm-hmm.
I would say go in the summer because it's just so gorgeous, and there's boats, and there's so many flowers, and there's, it's just such a wonderful time to be there.
We divided Bayview into two walks, and I think the more neighborhoody south side of Bayview, we have a Bayview North and a Bayview South, and walking through that neighborhood in the winter, and we go through the park around the yacht club. That's very enjoyable walk in the winter. In fact, all my photos come from that time of year that are in the book in that walk.
It took me 35 years of living here in Wisconsin to finally get the right boots and hat and coat. And I feel like that's a really important part of exploring, in any way, the city outside during the winter, is that it's just so much better if you're able to get the necessary clothing for it. I know that not everyone can do that, but
we're hardy folk. I think we understand that. Don't let the winter stop us from going outdoors and having a PBR, some festival or another.
The PBR. Miller Country. Miller did not sponsor this. I just happened to be doing
one. We're not sponsored. And another question from Tim. Beyond Milwaukee, do you guys have other favorite walking cities?
Yes.
Indeed. New Orleans is top of my list.
We love New Orleans.
Detroit.
We love Detroit.
Detroit by bike is probably, I don't know, it's pretty adventurous actually, the bike tours that they have, but walking through the different parts of Detroit has been really enjoyable.
If you're interested and you actually Google our names, my name, I have the byline, he has the photos, but we have online through On Milwaukee, we have reviews, not the same kind of walks, but definitely like recommendations of places to go, both in New Orleans as well as in Detroit. New Orleans, we've been there separately 5 or 6 times and together at least 5 or 6 times, both on assignment and on vacation. And it's one of our, after Milwaukee, it's probably our favorite place in the world and our favorite place to walk. Because
Sure.
we walk everywhere. We walk through all different neighborhoods in New Orleans and would love to write something like this about New Orleans someday.
Sure, they have their own experts though.
They probably do. I got that covered.
Well,
they don't need us,
They don't need us.
but we would jump.
We'd volunteer.
Yeah, right. We would.
Awesome. Well, that rounds out our questions. So if there's anything else you would like to add, I'll just say first that we do have this book at Historic Milwaukee, and it's available at other local bookstores. Yeah, definitely get a copy of the book if you're interested. I'm sure this sparked your interest a little bit with some walks that you saw that you might want to see. I definitely want to go explore my own neighborhood. I'm sure there's things that I didn't even know were there that I can discover.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, and for anyone who tuned in, and just enjoy Milwaukee, be safe, have fun, and maybe we'll see you on the streets.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, bye everyone. Have a good night.